Apologetic is the universal science and the solution to everything. Apologetic answers every problem entertained by human minds, implicitly or explicitly. This claim might appear to be absurd, extravagant or both, but theoretically there must be a solution to every problem, or our problems are unrelated, and it takes an even more absurd theory to arrive at that conclusion. If our problems are all related, then the solution to them is found at their point of origin. Our problems started somewhere, and if they are all related, which they logically must be, then the solution is embedded in the point prior to when these problems arose. There can only be one solution in fact, because it must be in existence prior to the origin of the problems. So, regardless of your views regarding God, there is and must be a single solution, and because this solution eradicates all of our problems methodically, it is a science and the only one we need. There is no logical way around this analysis. Of course, there are people who will dispute this universal science is apologetic. But what else could it be? One science cannot be a solution to the other sciences. The single, universal science must have the form of a meta-science. This must be considered God, and apologetic is the study of how God thinks. We have become used to the division of the sciences into the hard and soft sciences. This alone tells us that the conventional areas of research are too focused and specialized to serve a universal role. Physics studying history would turn history into an abnormal study. The opposite is also true. We need not go through every field of inquiry to realize they cannot be applied outside of their own focused area. But apologetic is different. It is not simply the study of the Bible and Christian theology. It studies how God thinks and therefore, how reality is constructed. This is true, but how does this help us find the solution to our problems and the point at which our problems originated? Is finding answers to our problems a theological problem or a natural science problem? This is easy to answer because the natural sciences do not study or recognize human problems. Unemployment is not a problem in physics, chemistry, mathematics, or any of the other physical sciences. Unemployment is a human problem and indeed, a moral one. Moral issues come down to being a problem of the mind. Moral problems are problems because they are offensive to us. Unemployment is a problem to us, because we define it as one. The human mind wills the situation to be different than it is. But how does this happen? If we investigate why things fall to the ground, we recognize that it does not have to be this way. We do not know this by experience. Yet, we study why things are as they always have been. So far as we can tell, things have always been this way, but we see no reason why they should be as they are. There is a universe of difference between seeing the sun and calling it the sun and even seeing it move across the sky, then associating its position with a certain time of day and associating all of this with a physical law. It is still another level of ability when we determine our community might be better served if we change the time according to the season, as we do with daylight savings time. It is not so much that we do these things but that we are able to look at different options and pick out a preferred one. We look at option 1 and decide it is better than option 2. What does better even mean, in terms of a physical universe? How is life better than death if we are talking about physical matter? But the question highlights the absurdity of the notion of a physical universe. What is life in physical terms? One cannot explain it. To say the body is alive, is to discount the physicality of the body. That we are alive testifies to the fact that we are not physical beings. The claim that life exists belies the claim the body is composed of matter. Why does life bother trying to protect and perpetuate itself if it is just a state of matter, and as we mentioned above, why is life a more preferred state than death? What does it matter if we live in a hut with a leaky roof or a modern home? What is it, in the physical forces that compose matter, that thinks it is better to develop homes into cocoons that protect us from the natural elements? No other creature is as concerned about living protected from nature as we are. In fact, we have little ability to live long, without at least some of the elements of civilized living. Animals tend to be push-driven. They get hungry or thirsty and they look for food and water. There is no desire or drive to go into space. How nebulous is the benefit of space travel? How does a mechanical thing compare the ability to travel in space to the inability? How does a watery bag of chemicals determine its existence is better or more preferred, when it can travel in space? What does it mean to be better off in condition 1 than in condition 2, if there is no better or worse in physical reality? If condition 1 does exist but condition 2 does not exist, what unites them? What brings them together in the human mind? What do they have in common that enables us to judge them or compare them, side by side, when the thing they have in common exists only in our own mind? One can see one apple is bigger than the other, in a side-by-side comparison, but why do we think the bigger one or the redder one is better? To think A is better than B, is to have a scale on which to place them, and which extends from a value of very bad to perfection. The question of how we compare different things is really a question of how we envision perfection. If we have a way to rate non-perfection compared to perfection, we only need to place the actual example on the scale and compare scores. In contingent reality there is no perfection, however. What is a perfect groundhog? What is a perfect tree? We call a day perfect because it suits us. The day matches a set of conditions that makes us feel a certain way. But a day is not perfect according to any objective sense of the word. We live in an artificial reality, a reality that is only artificial in that it is constructed by man for his own purposes. A road is made out of material things and traces a route across the earth, but its path is more aligned with a line on a map than with the typography of the region. It follows its own logic, going from place to place according to the placement of things created by us, than any physical factors. A road is not the same thing as a river following the low ground. Nor does its design follow the criteria that decides where a river flows. Natural law follows the path of least resistance, or it responds to force. This suggests a lack of will. But humans resist force. The cold will naturally drain heat from a warmer body, but man resists the natural tendency for temperatures to equalize, by wearing warm and insulating clothing. But the more the environment is natural, the lower is our ability to resist the impact of natural law. It takes work to resist nature and to create an environment in which the laws of nature are less impactful. The principle underlying apologetic is universalism. Apologetic assumes everything can be explained by reference to a single underlying principle. Everything that exists is connected. With science everything is disconnected. Each science has its own measures and point of view. This does not mean science does not have any direction or that it has its own measure of progress and success. It means that the measures are informal and often hidden. The agenda of science and scientists is defined more by who has the money for research than who has the best ideas. The path of science is not controlled of any objective measure of success or idea of merit. And so the question becomes, what is the measure of success, as a scientist? What is the purpose of man that science ought to contribute to it? The answer is in front of us and is there every minute of our day and every moment of our life. We need to work smarter, not harder. But we cannot do it alone. We need to use less while doing more. This is partly about perfecting our individual skills, but it is also about developing machines and methodologies that eliminate waste. A skill focuses on producing what is required at the expense of eliminating what is peripheral or unnecessary. If we focus on what is needed to the exclusion of what can be eliminated, we produce specialization and specialists. Specialization is not just about perfecting what we do, it is about eliminating everything others are able to do better. This is why we become scientists and why we become the kind of scientist we are. We hone our skills in relation to a needed ability. And so, the doing of science becomes a task of improving everything for everybody, by each person doing what they do best. Which puts it on a par with what all of the rest of us are doing. As a Christian, our task is to improve the planet. This is charity. Charity is the footprint we leave behind for all to see. Some call it our legacy. Civilization is production minus consumption. We are required to add value to the planet. The natural world is not to be counted as something belonging to us. What we track as Christians is the value we add to the world. Science is the study of the human mind, will or purpose. Science is the methodological tracking of progress. We need to measure progress as what we contribute over what we consume. Progress is the manifestation of our human will and also a way to evaluate the workings of our mind. There must be a quantification of this. Some number must improve. This number or index needs to quantifiable. If nature is ground zero, then everything we do either adds value to the planet or is consumed. Low-level civilizations or subsistence cultures consume what they produce and never accumulate substantial amounts of capital. This charitable addition to the value of the world needs to be tracked. What we do matters. We can be judged according to strict, scientific criteria. This is done by something as simple as cash accounting. Double-entry bookkeeping normalizes the satanic system. If you use the double-entry system or are a party to it, then you are a Babylonian. Of course, this entire system is Babylonian and utilizes double-entry. The church utilizes cash accounting. The double entry is not a clever way to keep accounts, it is sophistry at its worst. What it serves to do is to hide the evil. There is no such thing as a liability. It is a total fabrication of Satan. God owns the natural universe, and man owns the equity he or she creates. There is no shared or contest ownership of the natural world. That we permit such an absurd notion to exist is because it is a conspiracy to usurp the rights of the Creator. The state and the private sector join in a conspiracy not only to defraud the church, but God. The church is the rightful steward of what belongs to God. We represent Christ as the author of creation. If this is so, who do Christians work for? Whose property are we to add value to? Even if we work for each other or for a Christian business, the world still has claims on what we do. We are required to pay taxes and support the systems in place, and these maintain the Babylonian realm. We must still utilize the double-entry bookkeeping system, so long as we are in this system, because we will still be subject to the liabilities created by this system, if we do not. In short, we know when we are working for God because we can revert back to cash accounting.